Welcome to the Date Forever podcast. Keep your relationship fueled up with strategies discovered by couples and experts. Because at Fuel Collective, we believe better relationships will equal a better world. You are about to discover specific insights and tools that cost little or nothing to implement to help you date forever. And now, here are your hosts, a couple who always have a half-packed suitcase and a date night in the calendar, Sammy and Nathan Yeager.
Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting about open and polyamorous relationships, swinging and safe sex, and having challenging conversations. But before we get into that, what's been fueling you up this week, Sammy?
So it's probably like a preemptive fuel up.
Okay.
It's like I'm getting fueled up by the activity that will fuel me up.
Okay. What is it?
I love planning. I think it's the event manager in me, deep within my soul, that it's part of my identity and who I am. But our Kiki K annual You're laughing and I haven't even said it yet. I did a Kiki K stationery order, which included our 2022 wall calendar and some journals and stuff that will help me is helping me get organized for next year.
Get shit sorted.
So we are about to do our annual game plan day this weekend.
We are. Yep.
Yeah,
it's
which
in the
we
calendar.
do. Yeah, in the calendar. We do it every year. We take a day or two to plan out the next 3, 6, 4, 5. So I've got like preemptively excited and filled up about setting some intentions for next year, and also the awareness that 2021 is coming to a close, and I had a few goals and things that were outstanding that I've made a hustle on.
Trying to do a little sprint right at the end.
Yeah, get a couple things across the line. Yeah, so this last week has probably been quite a reflective week. I've already been thinking about.
So you're planning for the planning, is that?
Yeah, basically. Basically, I've been doing some pre-thinking ahead of the planning.
Yeah, amazing.
Is that like way too A-type personality? This is my fuel up. It brought me joy.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly it. That's what I was meant to do. So as a little self-plug, if you want to grab our framework that we use to do our annual game planning, you can jump across to fuelcollective.com.au/AGP to be able to grab the annual game plan agenda. It's a little mini course that has a whole heap of conversation prompts to help you unpack what's working and what needs some work throughout the year. There's 9 bite-sized video lessons. There's Google Sheets for budgets and money forecast templates. There's goal-setting activities to go through with your partner. There's a clear agenda to run your very own annual game plan day. There's a PDF workbook with activities, a printable annual calendar, and also a vision board template to be able to display all of your goals for the year.
Yeah, Nathan and I have been running this annual game plan day for like 5 years.
Yeah, a long time
And we've been
now.
refining it basically each and every year. So it's really exciting that we've been able to bundle up all of the tools and resources and things that we've been using so that you don't have to. You don't have to start from scratch. And if you want to implement some more planning and set some intentions together as a couple, you could do this as an individual person or as a couple for next year. Or you could do this at any time for the upcoming year.
Yep.
So go and grab it and run your own annual game plan. So much of what we talk about at Fuel Collective is about setting intentions, and this is such a great way to do that.
Yeah, it is.
And what about you? What fueled you up this past week?
So this past week, I've actually bought myself some new clothes for probably, I did a pretty extensive shop, and I bought some new clothes the first time probably,
it's been a while.
2 years almost.
Yeah, but you haven't been anywhere, so
yeah, I know.
No one's seen you recycling the same outfits over and over again except me.
I think the last time I properly bought some new clothes was just before heading to Europe, like in mid-2019, and yeah.
You were due for a refresh.
I was definitely due for a refresh, so I made the most of some Black Friday sales and went and refreshed some of the main staples and things like that in my wardrobe, so yeah. So I got some fresh new clothes for summer, which will be really nice.
It's kind of amazing how much what we wear on the outside and feeling good on the outside with like feeling sharp can make such a difference too.
Oh, it definitely can. And it doesn't need to be everything new, but just like one fresh item or something.
Even fresh undies.
Yeah. Or like fresh socks or something like that. Yeah. It only really needs to be one thing and just to completely kind of transform how you feel.
Yeah. Hey, so before we get into this week's episode, this is probably like the most heteronormative challenged episode that we've done.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this is the episode that we've probably explored conversations that are the furthest away from what we see in like mainstream media, mainstream TV, movies and stuff. And like when I reflected back on the conversation, I don't think we framed up very well what an open relationship is. And I think we just assumed that people would know what we're talking about. So before we get into introducing our guests, I just wanted to share, like, we use the term open marriage or open relationship. And that's a term used to describe a relationship where both partners agree that they have sexual relationships or relationships with others that doesn't influence or doesn't compromise the core relationship. Yeah, we also use some terms like polyamorous and swingers. So polyamorous being a desire to have intimate relationships with more than one partner. So it's not necessarily just about sexual connection. And then swingers being relationships where you might have sexual encounters with other couples or you might swap partners. So go into this episode open-minded, and like everything that you hear on this show, if it's not for you, you leave it behind. But if you want to take some nuggets from this episode, enter with an open mind.
So now here's this week's guests.
Today we've got Bradford and Angela joining us. They are the hosts of the Bi podcast, which is a podcast for anyone interested in learning a bit more about bisexuality, the swinger community, open relationships, BDSM, and everything else your vanilla friends refuse to talk about with you. Bradford and Angela are a bisexual expat couple who are now in Sydney, Australia. Each episode they chat about themselves, their experiences, and their relationship, and we are stoked to have them here today to talk about exactly that.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yes, we're excited.
Yeah.
Hey, so we were just chatting pre-episode that you're up to, like, you're approaching episode 300. So we know you've had some pretty cool conversations, but we would love to go right back to the beginning. Like, how did the two of you meet?
So we actually met at work. We worked together.
Yeah. And, that whole, you should never date somebody you work with. It was, I was married to somebody who also worked at that company. And so anyway, the long and short of it is, we met at work. And from the very beginning, we were open and just dating other people at the same time.
Yeah.
So Bradford, were you obviously dating other people prior to coming to this relationship?
Yes. I was married for 12 years. And then...
And you'd recently split up.
Split up and was that sad single fella playing all the trombone music behind me. But then we started hanging out just in a friends group, and it was immediate. I was like, this lady, there's something special about her.
So Angela, were you also in an open relationship before meeting Bradford?
So no, I had been married twice previously, and both of those were monogamous. And that was what I thought was expected and what you were supposed to do. And so that was kind of the path that I had gone down. But then, around the time that we met, I had come out of the second marriage and I was just wanting to have fun. And I didn't want any pressures, any expectations. I was just like, I'm just going to have fun with whoever, whatever. And I didn't really know that there was this option to have, say, an open relationship or to be non-monogamous. And I just kind of fell into it. But fortunately, Bradford came along and we started hooking up and kind of having some fun together. And as it got more and more serious, we both realized that we don't want this to be an only us thing. We still want to include these other people that we're having fun with and we're dating. And we just kind of fell into it, I think, a bit naturally together. And we had some conversations around it for sure.
Lots of conversations.
Yeah. But it was not something I had done before this relationship.
Yeah, wow. And what was that transition like from like having been in monogamous relationships in the past to like this whole other idea of how a relationship could be?
It's really interesting. For me, I think, so again, growing up in the South, in the US, you're meant to leave high school, marry somebody, have children, and then that's just the cycle.
Yeah.
And to buck that system was very weird at first. And I'm going to say in the beginning, and even up until even recently, you sometimes feel guilt about it. Like, and it's not guilt because Angela is making me feel bad about it. It's that societal guilt, right? We're put into a world in which we watch Disney movies. We want to be a Disney prince or princess. That's basically it. And in fact, for some people, that's great. And I'm really excited for them. But for others, it it doesn't work. And for us, it didn't work.
Yeah. And for me, I think the biggest challenge was the level of communication needed. Because while I'd like to think that I communicated well in my previous relationships, and I would say particularly with one of my previous partners for sure, but not to this level. And there would still, because we're very open with each other about everything. And from the beginning, we talked about everything. Like we would go on dates with other people and it was, how did it go? What did you like? What did you not like? Are you going to see them again? We were in constant communication about these things. And then also how that affected us and how we each felt about it. And it made those conversations made all the other hard conversations easier, because I know that previously I might be scared or anxious, maybe anxious is a better word, to go to a partner and say, oh, by the way, this thing happened, we really need to deal with this thing or whatever. And I would be very uncomfortable with those conversations. But because we could talk about our sex lives and our relationships with each other and with everyone else so easily, it made those things easier. It made kind of, as things went along in our relationship, it made the money conversations easier, the responsibility communications easier, and it made me a lot less anxious to have those conversations.
I always say that once you can talk to your partner about who you want to have sex with, who does the laundry and empties out the dishwasher, that stuff becomes easy.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably a great advice for anyone, even if they're in a monogamous relationship or whatever their relationship looks like. I think if you can have some of those tough conversations up front, kind of set up that foundation of communication and that you are going to be open and chat about things and chat about what you're liking, what you're not liking, what's working, what's not working, all of these things early on in a relationship, I think that really does then kind of set that foundation for your relationship, but also for your communication going forward too.
Yeah, you definitely hit the nail on the head. If so many of us are raised with seeing, it's almost as if we're meant to read our partner's minds and our partners read our minds. And that's unrealistic. Communication is the key. It's like that is the key to any good relationship.
Yeah. And even if you're monogamous, you can still have those conversations about even who you're attracted to. Because, just because you're monogamous doesn't mean you're not walking down the street and be like, oh, that person's really hot. And so being able to voice that and to talk about that with your partner, I think there's something really great about that. And it does then make everything else easier.
Yeah.
But I think that was the biggest challenge for me, was just getting comfortable with that level of communication.
Agreed.
Yeah, very cool. So, I know that we've got friends who are in open relationships or who have been in the past. And I know that everybody kind of has different rules and different boundaries. And obviously we're human beings. Of course we do. But I would love to, whatever you're willing to share about your boundaries, what are the rules for engagement for how you conduct yourselves in an open relationship?
Well, it changed in the beginning. Like, of course, right? So in the beginning, you have this like manual, and it looks like a manual from like a 1979 Datsun. It's this huge manual, and you're like, you don't do this, we will do this, we might do this. And
only in these circumstances.
Yeah, like only on alternating Thursdays when the weather is bright. And then as you go along, you start to realize that some of those rules are built around your own insecurities. Mm-hmm. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. This is normal human being stuff. So you start to get more comfortable with your relationship, with your partner, with yourself. And some of those rules just sort of fade away. So for us now, we probably have 2.5 rules, 3.
Three. It was 3.5.
3.5.
Yeah.
So the first is we always play safe. And with that, we mean condoms. We get regular checks for STIs. We are diaphragms if the people wish to use it. So we always play safe.
Dental dams.
Dental dams. I said diaphragms.
They're different things.
Let's cut that. Please make me sound smart. Dental dams, man. Yeah. I tell you.
Yeah. Diaphragms too, if people want.
Sure, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah. One of everything.
One of everything.
I think that's a great first rule.
Yeah.
Personal health and safety.
And some of that is also letting your partner know where you go, where you are. So Angela and I, and a lot of people cringe at this, we both share our locations on Google Maps. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we have nothing to hide. Like if I end up at a sauna or Angela, if I'm traveling, she goes to the swingers club, we're not hiding it, right? So that's part of that though, is that personal safety.
And I think as well, when we're talking about the personal safety, we do tell each other if we're going out on dates separately with someone else, we will tell each other where we're going. Like, this is where I expect to be. But you know how it is. You might meet someone at a bar, then go to another bar. And so we try to update each other as we go along. But sometimes that goes out the window and you just forget. And so that's why the whole Google Maps thing is at some point I'd be like, is he still out? Is he on his way home? I don't know.
It's a dark, dark joke, but I always say I want somebody to know where to find the body.
That's it. Funnily enough, we had a similar conversation not that long ago, but we realized that we were both sharing locations with each other, and like
no idea when that might have been from.
Like, no idea where it'd been
we think
from.
it might have been from a festival that we went to.
Yeah.
Like literally years ago, and we've been sharing a location ever since.
Yeah. And I think that just also, it builds trust between the two of you too, that no one's, or like, that you can check out, or you can find out where they are, but that nobody's hiding anything.
Yeah. And plus, you always know when to have the wine poured so that when she gets home from work, I can look and say, okay, so the wine needs to breathe for approximately 10 minutes and she's 12 minutes out. This is perfect.
Yeah.
So, sorry, back to rules. The second rule, which I'm going to say we started breaking more consistently, was we wouldn't play with somebody on the first night, right? So we wanted to make sure that we had some sort of connection with people. We aren't the type of people that go out and play with somebody and then never talk to them again. We want to have friends, literally friends with benefits. And so we wouldn't play with people on the first night. That changed because we would meet people at a bar and they may be transient, they're only in Sydney for one night, and be like, well, what are we going to do about this?
Yeah, that was one of those rules that was good at the beginning, but as we kind of went along this together, it's definitely changed. And of course, going to the swingers club, sometimes we'll meet people there, not play with them that night, but the next time we see them there, or even outside of the club. But there's also a lot of times we just meet people there and just play with them. So that's definitely a rule that has bent, but it can still be, I think that's more for if we're seeing people separately than if we're seeing people together. But it still gets bent sometimes.
I don't know. So. I'm more apt to hook up with somebody separately on the first time.
Yeah.
That's what Grindr's for.
See, I see that as different, though. This is where the rule bending comes in.
Yeah. But I think it comes back to your first rule of just being open and honest and transparent. Well, maybe that's the first underlying rule that doesn't even go on the rule board because it's pay to play.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. It's interesting because now the third rule, which again hasn't, they're all editable, right? Which was you don't let people spend the night. Like this is our nest and we don't want people in our nest. And in fact, we've gotten to the point now, so we've recently moved. If we turn the camera around, you would see all kinds of boxes of mess. But we are currently in our playroom. And so this is a bedroom that we have built and we're building it for sex, right?
Amazing.
And so right over there, we have a little cabinet with sex toys and lubes and condoms and all the safety stuff. We're sitting on a play bed that is washable. And then we've got our sleeping bed in another bedroom.
Yeah. And we have said, though, that we don't want people to stay the night, but that's more for those transient hookups and things like that. Once people become really good friends, we've had friends that may live further afield and then they come to visit and we play with them, we hook up with them. And they do stay the night, or maybe a weekend even, or
a week,
or
in
a week.
The case of some people from the UK.
Yeah, and that's fine. But it's more just if we meet somebody out at a bar and you bring them home, I don't want them to stay the night. That to me needs to be more transactional. So that's where that rule kind of comes in.
But really, the only major rule other than communication is play safe.
Yeah, that's the one that never gets bent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Hey, so tell us a little bit about the Swingers Club and that environment and I guess the community that's wrapped around that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it is amazing. It's just like every other community. There's the goods and the bads. The community that we have built within the Swingers Club. So the club that we go to is Our Secret Spot here in Sydney. We like it because we always feel safe there. It's so funny because I think a lot of people expect Caligula. They expect to walk in and the first thing they do is step in some lube or a used condom or something gross. But it's much more like high-end nightclub kind of thing, right? So you walk in and there's this beautiful bar and there's these nice big Chesterfield leather lounges. There's a pool table, there's a dance space. And downstairs, most people are just sitting and chatting. And it's one of those wonderful things that I think so many of us don't have a space to do. And that's speak without any filters. And I think that it's so much fun to be able to just lounge about and talk about life and then also talk about sex at the same time. And I think that it's so taboo to talk about sex. Oh my God, you can't talk about sex. And I can't believe you said that. And it's just great. That's one of the things I love about the club.
Yeah. And then upstairs, they have all their play spaces. And there's a few different types of play spaces. There's closed doors, so you can have a little more privacy. There's ones that are very open that we tend to like because we tend to like the voyeurism and the exhibitionism associated with that. But it's also fun just to sit back and watch people sometimes and just see what's going on. And it's nice to make the connections with people downstairs and really kind of get to know them. And then once you are like, okay, we really like these people, let's go upstairs and let's play, assuming all parties are interested in such. And it's nice to have that option to do so because like Bradford said, it's basically like a high-end nightclub. So you can get to know people. And then if you want to, you don't have to take them home. There's a space right upstairs.
Yeah.
Not far to go.
But it really is a great community. There's goods and bads in every community, of course, but there's so many people there that are very supportive. And it is, we go quite regularly. And so you start to see some of the same people again, always new faces as well. But it is really nice to be able to go and see these people. And it may be the only time we see them in life. We may not ever see them outside of the club, but there's still a rapport there. And there's still that care and that, if you need anything. And even with lockdowns, we've had a lot more communication with people that we've met at the Swingers Club. Just everybody supporting each other. And do you need anything? Do you need to have a chat? Whatever. And it's good to be able to build those relationships. Because as adults, how else do we meet people really? When you're kids, you meet people at school. Now we meet people at work, which is really pretty limited for some people, and especially now everybody working at home. And so how do you go out and how do you make friends? And this is a way that we found that we can go meet people, be unfiltered. We don't have to worry about what we say. And, if we like them, then we might have sex with them.
And you're making lifelong friends, honestly. Yeah. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but we have friends that live north of Perth. We live in Sydney. And when I say we're friends, we talk to them throughout the week where we always have these chats going on. We'll try to FaceTime or Zoom with them at least once a month. And in May, we went out to Broome and spent a week with them. These are really honest to goodness friends. And it's just great. It's great to have that. We've got friends really all over the world because of this.
Very cool. Yeah. So I would love to know, we were in lockdown currently at the point of conversation, and I'm assuming it's just the two of you at home. How has that disruption of variety to just each other, how has that changed things for your relationship?
Our relationship is still super strong. It's great because we love each other and we are supportive of one another. I will say it is starting to drive me a bit crazy because I am such a social animal. Even if I'm not going out on dates and having sex with people, I need to be around people. I am a extrovert in the extrovertiest of senses.
Top of the spectrum.
I think it is harder for Bradford too, because he does work from home. I go into an office still. I still get out and see people and interact with other people. So I think it is harder for him because he doesn't have as much of that outside interaction.
Yeah.
But even so, we've recently moved, as Bradford mentioned earlier. And even during the move process, we were helping some folks move some furniture, and they're good friends. They're play friends. And, I happened to bump into one of them and I was like, oh, this touch is really nice. It's not anything at all, but it's touch of someone else.
Not socially distanced touch.
Yeah.
Right. And we did have one of our boyfriends help us move as well because we needed a vehicle because we don't have a car. So he loaned us his ute and he spent the night because, we didn't want him driving home all the way. And he had helped us and he was, tired. So we have bent the rules a bit. We are allowed to see romantic partners, right?
Yeah.
Wink, wink. And so, we've got two boyfriends that we've seen a couple of times throughout all of this, but we were the ones that were going to our secret spot on a Friday night and a Saturday night, mm-hmm. and then going to a brunch date on Sunday. We've toned it down quite a lot.
Yeah. But we do still keep up with people through chats and things like that. And that's really helped. It's not the same, but it helps.
So can you talk us through, Bradford, you use the language like our boyfriend. When is the transition between a relationship of like, oh, that's a play friend to like this actually being like a boyfriend or a girlfriend?
That's a wonderful question. And that's so hard to answer. So when we started this, it's so funny. Angela and I were so anti-relationship. We just did not want a relationship. But we started noticing that we were spending time together and not having sex. So it clearly wasn't just a sexual relationship. This is with Angela and I. And so we decided, okay, we're going to keep things open. And then once we moved to Australia, we ended up meeting a fella and seeing him a lot. And we had no intention of becoming polyamorous. Not at all. None of us did. But the more we hung out with him, and he would start coming over and he would spend the night and we all sleep in the bed together, but there would be no sex. And like, at that point, you're like, okay, what are we doing? What is this?
I mean, for the record, there was sex at other times too.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But sometimes there wasn't.
Yeah.
Sometimes there wasn't. And I think that's the thing. At what point does something become a sexual relationship with a friend? When you start to, it gets to that point when you really can't imagine them not being there or not being able to reach out to them or not being able to talk to them. I think that's when starting to define love, right? And once you love somebody, that's when I think that you start calling them boyfriend. We've got two.
Another telltale sign for me is when I'm comfortable enough for them to stay with us in our bed. That to me says that I'm actually comfortable enough and like them enough to want them around more permanently.
Yeah. And so
I have a lot of issues with that.
One of our boyfriends, three of us went to Desire in Mexico together. And so we spent a full week at Desire, which is if you don't know what it is, it's a sort of a swinger nudist resort. And it was amazing traveling to the US and tooling around LA a bit and then traveling down to Mexico. And like none of us ever, when we got back, we were still happy. We still liked each other, right? That's a sign.
Yeah, that is a sign. Going on holidays with someone, spending a week together and still wanting to spend time with them. Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering that. So what I would love to know is I'm probably going to use some of the wrong language, so I apologize because I've got from some friends who are polyamorous and friends who are in open relationships, some of them use like primary relationship, secondary relationship, other relationship kind of like tiering kind of language. So I apologize if I get this wrong, but like, so you treat each other as if you're primary partners and then you both have boyfriends, girlfriends, some shared, some not. How does this impact the other parts of your life in terms of like finances and career and making bigger lifelong future decisions? Like, is it always just the two of you making those decisions and everybody else is secondary to that? Or do these other people weigh into those bigger life decisions?
So the way we treat it is that we are definitely primary partners. And for most purposes, our big life decisions are made by us with us in mind. But that doesn't mean that the others aren't on the periphery in mind, and we may ask their opinions as well. Like when we've got a new bed and we got a king size bed because it's much more comfortable for three of us and the dog to fit in a king size bed. And so
dog takes up a lot of space.
Oh, they do, don't they?
So it's not like they don't come into consideration whatsoever. But I would say the big things are the decisions are made by us with our relationship in mind, also knowing that our relationship consists of the relationship with those around us and the boyfriends and the other people. But yeah, I guess I'm thinking more monetarily. They're not really in that.
Well, no, but yes, because when we moved, one of the things we didn't need was our refrigerator.
Yeah.
And so we gave that to one of the boyfriends, just gave it. It's like he needs it. We don't.
Yeah.
Like, well, let's not sell it. Let's just give it. I'd rather give it to him. Additionally, one of the boyfriends, all of our stuff, if we both should die, it's willed to his children. And so like, that's a big monetary thing that my parents still don't know about. But I don't think they listen to podcasts, so it's okay.
Well, and also the other boyfriend gets the dog. So.
Yes, exactly.
So they obviously have played into some of your decision making.
I mean,
they are very much a part of our lives, but we don't live together. And I think that's part of the difference. It's because of that. But they do very much play into our lives and decisions surrounding us.
Yeah. And we've always I'm an extrovert, but I'm also an only child. So I need my own space. And so we've always said like, it would be really great if all of our partners could like buy up apartments all around us. So we all share keys. Like they both have keys to our,
Just
both
buy a
boyfriends
complex.
have keys.
Yeah.
I know, right? That's what we want to do. That way we all have our own space, but we also can go in and out of everybody's space. There's
Basically like a
joke in there.
sitcom TV show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I want friends.
Yeah.
So Bradford, you touched on you need your own space. And I guess at the Date Forever podcast, we talk very much about dating your romantic partner, but then also dating yourself and having time for yourself and things like that. So how do the two of you go about doing that? Like are some of these other partners and boyfriends and things like that part of your own dating yourself routine and ritual, I guess?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I don't know. It's tough. Like this may not be the best example, but it is an example of how our relationship paradigm works. I'm not a Bunnings guy. I don't like Bunnings. I don't like hardware stores. I don't get it. Right?
You're clearly not Australian.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Well, in the States, we have Home Depot and Lowe's, and I didn't understand them either.
Yeah, okay.
Whereas Angela is like, she is the repair person of the house, and she loves Bunnings, and she can spend hours at Bunnings. One of the boyfriends also is a handyman. So they go to Bunnings together, and Bradford stays at home with the dog and plays video games. And I'm like, this is great. I love that. Because again, it goes back to one of the things that we often say is, you can't be everything for your partner. It's unfair. It's such a pressure to put on yourself. And I think that's also for yourself. You can't be everything for yourself. It's unfair and it's unrealistic. So that's something that really helps us.
Yeah. And we do sometimes see, obviously we see other people separately as well, but even the boyfriends will sometimes see separately. And so that gives the other one a chance to do either something else that they may want to do, or just to be at home and play video games or chill or do whatever. So it is, while we do very much enjoy going out and seeing people together and doing a lot of things together, it is important to have those times where maybe I just want to stay home. Maybe I don't want to do anything. Maybe I want to go for a walk in the park by myself. And so we do very much talk about that and acknowledge it. And at the beginning, I think Bradford would feel bad if he went out on a date and I stayed home. And I'm like, no, sometimes I like to have this time to myself. And that's okay. And I think you've gotten better with that.
I am better with that now. Yeah.
The gift of your lack of presence.
Yeah. Gift of your absence.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Sometimes I give Nate the gift of my absence. He enjoys his quiet time more than I do.
Yeah.
Hey, so
I can be full on.
So what I would love to know is if people have grown up, which is most likely with the lens of having monogamous relationships and that being the path, what would be the very first toe in the water to go, maybe there's another way? How would a couple go about having this conversation, even entertaining the idea, learning more, other than going and listening to your podcast? Where do they start? Where does maybe it's twofold. Where does an individual start and where would a couple start?
So for a couple, my first advice would be to watch porn together. And I know that seems strange, but watch ethical porn together and pay for it. I think that watching porn together, you can learn so much about what you like and what your partner likes, and what, more importantly, what you don't like.
Also what you like together, what you have in common.
Yeah. And there's something really sexy about having sex with porn on, right? Because then you get that feeling that you're not alone. You are, but you're not. I think that that's something that would be my first advice. And I know that probably seems kind of silly, but that's the first thing that I would do. And you're right, listen to our podcast, but we also have worksheets that people can talk about what turns them on, what they would like to do, and they're free to download, and you can just kind of learn more about yourself and your partner and what your likes and dislikes are and what you would like to try.
Yeah, and one of the worksheets, so they're on our website, we'll get to that, we'll mention it later, but one of the worksheets is very much you fill it out, your partner fills it out, then you come back together and talk about it. And it's things that might interest me at different levels. And like, am I interested in doing this with someone else? Am I interested in someone doing this to me? And it gives you a talking point to say, okay, if we're going to do this, what does it look like? And what do we want in other partners? And where would someone else fit into our relationship, so to speak? And it kind of helps you just at least start to think about whether you want someone as maybe just a sex partner, just as kind of a fuck buddy or somebody just to come and play with, or do you want something that's a more relationship, that's more friends and friends with benefits? So it does kind of help with that. the other thing, if depending on where the couple is, watching porn together is great. If they've had a few conversations about it, it can even be fun to open up an account on, like, say, Red Hot Pie, Adult Matchmaker, some of these sites, Field, all kinds of different apps. I mean, you could even do it with Tinder these days to do couple things, but to open it up and just look through other people, look through who else is online together, and who would you be interested in seeing together or separately, like what interests you, but just being able to have those conversations.
Yeah. And if it's something that you want to try, you just want to dip your toe in, find a sex worker and pay for somebody. Because I think the benefit of that is, for a sex worker, it's a job, right? It's just a job. So you don't have to worry about hurting someone. And I think that that's something else that's important to remember is when you're on these dating sites, these are real people, right? They have real feelings and we need to treat them like humans. And we've talked to a number of single ladies who have been, they feel like they're just a sex toy, right?
Yeah.
They just go
that
in
unicorn hunting thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's kind of gross. But if you hire a sex worker, cool. You've got this person for an hour or 2 hours. You can play, you can experience it, but it's almost, I don't want to say clinical, but it's still fun and sexy.
Yes.
But
And they are still humans.
Safe.
But
yeah, exactly. But they're doing a job, right?
Yeah.
You don't ask your doctor if they enjoy, like, did you enjoy my prostate exam? Because they're just doing it because, it's for you.
Yeah, there's an element of transaction there.
Right, exactly. And I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. And what about, and if there's someone who's maybe an individual who's still looking for, they want a romantic partner, but they know that they are unlikely to want to be monogamous. Like, how do you enter the community, or how do you show up as a single person who's looking for an open relationship?
So a good thing to do would be to go to the swingers club as a single. And that way you can meet other couples, you can meet other people. There's also other singles there. But above and beyond anything else, when you're meeting people, when you're going out on dates, be honest with them from the beginning. And
yeah.
I mean, maybe not like the first thing that you say to them when you meet them, but from, first few dates, kind of very early on in the relationship, once you kind of know that I like this person and maybe I'm interested in something more, bring it up with them and mention to them that this is something that I'm thinking about. This is something that I want, wherever you are in that spectrum. And just have a conversation with them and see where they fit. And some people maybe very much know, I absolutely can only do monogamy. I don't want anything open, and that's it. Fine, you weed them out and you can move on to someone else. And you do that early before it gets too far in the relationship, before either of you get too invested. Or it may be that they're like, oh, I've never even thought about that. Okay, let's talk about this. What would that look like? And we've had friends who have done this. They've gone into relationships with people who were not previously non-monogamous, and they've had those conversations. They've given them the time. They've said, okay, look, I'll be monogamous with you for a little while. And they've kind of built, bit by bit, kind of built that relationship into more of the open relationship that they wanted. And so you also may hit the jackpot and find somebody else who's like, yes, no, I don't want monogamy either. Let's do this. So I think just early on, have those conversations with somebody, even if it's just mentioning it in passing, and just see what their reaction is.
And I'll also say, if you're in a relationship, it doesn't matter if it's a brand new relationship or a relationship that's been together for a decade. When you bring up something like this, we always say, give your partner time to process it. Because if you've been thinking, you may have been thinking about this for a very long time, right? You could have been thinking about it for weeks. And then you mention it to your partner. And I think our normal human nature is to go, I need a response now, right? I've been thinking about it for weeks. And you've had 45 seconds. That should be enough time to process this. And especially when you're saying something like, I want to open up our relationship, because your partner's first response is going to be, I'm not enough for them. And that's, again, it goes back to society tells us that you're supposed to be enough for one person and one person is supposed to be enough for you. But let them think about it. Give them, talk about it, and then maybe set a date in a week to talk about it again.
Yeah, I love that advice.
Yeah, that's solid. Hey, so to kind of round this out, what I would love to know is, we're on the Date Forever podcast talking about our relationships and how we keep them fueled up. Is there a practice, is there a habit or a ritual that the two of you have to keep your relationship fueled up?
Seeing other people.
It's just, we laugh, but it's kind of true. I love watching Angela play with somebody else, because I know the amazing skills and talents and passion that she brings to a relationship and to the bedroom. And to watch that and to see her sort of just like, I could never have that all to myself. It would be a sin. It would be like hiding the Mona Lisa in a closet. You don't do that. You let art shine. And Angela she is an artist. And we have plenty of references that can give you.
For those who are listening to this in audio only, they're making beautiful eyes at each other while they're saying this. It's beautiful.
Thanks. But it's true. And I think that's something that really, again, I'm so missed during COVID, is being able to share each other with each other and other people.
And the other thing that we do, just kind of little by little, and I mean, if people also listening can't see this, but we're often very much touching each other. And so like for us, touch is a very, very important thing. And so just being able to have that communication through touch is something, it's a very little thing, but it's also a very important thing for us that we do. So it's not a big action by any means, but without it, I think we'd both be lost.
Early on, we did the love languages test, and we learned that we are exactly in sync. And that's really helpful. But even if we weren't, it's really helpful to know what your partner's love language is, both giving and receiving.
Yeah.
There's also a sex joke in there too.
We would expect nothing less.
That's it.
Hey, this has been so great. Thank you so much for letting us have a peek behind the curtains of your relationship and how you make it work for you, and sharing a little bit about your podcast. But to say thank you, Nathan and I talk about being the change and taking accountability for ourselves and what we have influence over. And Bradford, you talked a little bit about that in terms of like going inward and going, well, why is this bothering me? What is it about this rule that I really need to hold up? But we also talk about being the change that we want to see in the world. So to say thank you for joining us, we've provided a student in Indonesia with a week's worth of classroom education. And this is in Borneo. So one of the great things about this project, which is looked after by Friends of National Parks Foundation, is that they support girls who otherwise wouldn't likely get to go to school. So thank you so much for making that possible.
Oh, that's great. Excellent.
No worries. So Bradford and Angela, if people want to connect with you or learn a little bit more about what you do, how should they do that?
So you can reach out to us and listen to us on our podcast. It's wherever podcasts are sold. It's By the By, BYTHEBI. You can also find us on our website, and that is www.bytheby.com.au. And then also on all socials, we're everywhere. And everywhere we are at By the By Podcast. So BYTHEBI Podcast.
Yeah, amazing. And you mentioned a couple of those PDF downloads and things like that to be able to check this, things like that. Where are those?
Yes, those are on our website. There's an education page. And so if you just go there, they're just right there ready to download.
Amazing.
Yeah, awesome.
Thank you so much.
Free.
Thank you for being so generous with your time and resources and sharing your story. We love you guys. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Well,
Thank you for having us on.
Great.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.